So the first thing to do when you get your heart is you've got to orientate yourself and work out which bit's the front, which bit's the back, which bit's the top, which bit's the bottom. Now, the top of the heart you can identify by looking for the blood vessels. These are the major arteries and veins that are leaving the heart. Straight away you can see something very interesting about the different structure between the arteries and the veins. These two structures at the top are the arteries. They've got a nice firm structure, a muscular wall, which because they are pumping blood at high pressure, and these two blood vessels here, which are much floppier and flimsier, are the veins. Looking at the front and back of the heart, you can see some other blood vessels running down the surface. These are the coronary arteries, and these are what is supplying the heart muscle itself with the oxygen in order to keep the heart pumping. These are the ones that will get blocked in order to cause a heart attack. If you get a blockage high up on the coronary artery, that will block a whole area of heart muscle from getting oxygen, and the muscle cells will die and you'll have a major heart attack. Minor heart attack, you would block maybe the end little section of the coronary artery, and hopefully it wouldn't be a fatal heart attack. It's very important to dissect a heart to see what they really look like. There's only so much you can learn from diagrams and from models like the model we have here. They look very, very different. The arteries aren't red, the veins aren't blue, etc. And so when you dissect something, you really get a good idea of what it looks like in reality. This is a sheep's heart. It's approximately the same size as a human heart, maybe slightly smaller, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. The first thing to notice, which is very different from diagrams and models, are the atria. These little sort of appendages here at the top are actually the atria, the two small chambers of the heart, and they are obviously much smaller than the diagrams. The majority of the heart is made up of the ventricles. So the first thing to do is work out which is the left and the right side of the heart. A quick way to tell that is just by feeling the muscle. The muscle on the left side is much thicker than the muscle on the right side. I can feel that's quite thin between my two fingers. This side much thicker, much stronger. Therefore that tells me that this is the left side of the heart, this is the right side of the heart. You always label the heart as if it was your own heart and you were lying on the board or on the page if you were looking at a diagram. So while this is the right side of the screen, if I was lying down, this would be the left side of my heart. So this is the left side of the heart here. So once you've worked out which is left and right, you've had a look at the arteries, maybe you've stuck your finger down the arteries to feel what it's like inside the heart. You should be able to feel your fingers wiggling at the bottom there. You get a good idea of what it's like. You can feel the muscle, and you can see this white stuff here, which is actually fat. It's not unhealthy. Fat is important in the body, and it is used to protect organs and for insulation. So this is perfectly normal to have this amount of fat on a heart. So what we're going to do is going to cut down the left side of the heart using the scalpel to have a look inside the left ventricle. So here's the left side of the heart here, and I'm going to cut just along the edge of this fat here to have a look inside and see what it looks like, what we can find. So there we go. I've opened up the left ventricle here, the major chamber of the heart. The first thing to notice really is just how thick this wall is. Significant thickness there, which is because this chamber, this side of the heart, has got to pump the blood around the whole body, the systemic circulatory system, and so it's got to be really thick and really strong in order to do that. If we cut up here towards the atria, cut into the atria, we start to see some other structures inside. So what can we see here? We can see some really interesting little cords, little strings. These are little tendons, and these are attached, as you can see, to this flap here. this flap is actually the valve, or part of the valve, which stops the heart, the blood, flowing the wrong direction in a heart. It's controlled by this lump here, which is called the papillary muscle, and these connected to these little tendons, which are called the chordae tendineae, or the heartstrings, and they can then contract and pull to open and close the valves. This valve, because it's on the left side of the heart, is the bicuspid valve. It's between the atria, which is this little chamber up here, and the ventricles, which is the major chamber down here. So when blood flows in via this vein, which is the pulmonary vein, it's coming down from the lungs, it's carrying oxygenated blood. At first the blood fills up this atria, and then it drains down and fills up the ventricle down here. But when the ventricle contracts, you don't want the blood to come back out that same vein. We want it to flow out of the body via aorta. So this valve will cover the hole there, the vein exit, and it will push the blood up behind the other part of the valve, which you can just see there by my finger, and that will push the blood up and it will pop out of this artery at the top of the heart, which is the aorta. It is the major artery, the thickest artery, biggest artery in the body. Now, if we have a look on the other side of the heart, we can see the major differences between the left and the right side. So here is the right side of the heart, and straight away we can see the big difference here. If I just show you the thickness of that wall, it is maybe 3 mil thick, 3 to 5 mil thick, and if you look at the thickness of the left side of the heart, it's 20 mil. Okay, a significant difference, which again you can't really see usually on diagrams and models so much, but here in a dissection you can really see the major difference between the two sides. Inside, again, you've got the ventricle chamber here, and if we cut further, we'll also be able to find a similar looking valve, which is going to be the tricuspid valve. There it is there. Now, the valves, people quite often don't remember which way round they go. The easy way to remember is that the tricuspid valve has an R in the word, and therefore it's found on the right side of the heart, the tricuspid valve, and the bicuspid valve is found on the left side here. There are two other valves that you should know about. These are found inside the major arteries. They're quite often hard to find. You need a certain amount of artery to actually be able to see them. They're called the semilunar valves, and they can be located inside the two arteries. Okay, so we've identified the 4 chambers, the 2 atria, the 2 ventricles, we've identified the coronary arteries, we've identified the tricuspid valve, the bicuspid valve, okay, the aorta, the pulmonary vein. This, when the right atrium contracts, it will go out of this artery here, which will then go up to the lungs, so therefore that is the pulmonary artery. And when the blood has gone out of the aorta around the body and lost all its oxygen, it will drain back into the the right atrium via the vena cava, which is that vein there. These are the major structures of the heart, and just as a comparison, just to show you that on the model as well. Okay, here's the same heart in the same position. We take off the front of the model, you can see inside there you've got the left side of the heart, big thick wall, the septum which divides the two halves. Here's the right side with its much thinner wall. Okay, and here are the valves that you can see.